The corridor felt suffocating. Emma clutched Liam tightly, his tiny body shaking, as she begged anyone to help. "Please. My son, he's very sick," she shouted, desperation cracking her voice. But the response was cruel laughter. A nurse leaned over, smirking at her tattered clothes. "Does she really think she's a nurse?" A patient chuckled harshly. "What a joke. Look at her acting all important." Whispers and judgmental glances spread through the crowd, each one cutting deeper. Liam whimpered softly, and Emma felt her chest tighten, shame and disbelief crashing down like a weight she couldn't lift. Then the door swung open. Silence rippled instantly. Dr. Harper stepped in, his presence commanding the room. He looked at Emma, reading her fear and expertise in one glance, and said calmly but firmly, "She knows what she's doing. Act immediately. Will Emma prove them all wrong and save her son? Can courage and skill overcome doubt and ridicule?" Before the story unfolds, follow the channel to watch more inspiring stories of resilience, justice, and hope. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway, and the sharp smell of disinfectant filled the air. Emma Wilson moved with quiet precision, her nurse's uniform pressed, her posture upright, her expression calm. For years, she had been the steady anchor of the hospital, the one doctors trusted when panic hit, the one patients leaned on when fear seemed unbearable. She had dedicated her life to the care of others. But on that morning, the world she had built collapsed. She stood in the director's office, a sterile room with glass walls and cold lighting. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the strap of her bag. Across the desk sat Mr. Grant, the hospital administrator, his face a mask of forced sympathy. "Emma," he said, his voice flat, "we have no choice. A patient's chart was mishandled. The error could have been catastrophic. The responsibility falls on you." Emma's heart pounded. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I double-checked that chart myself. I know what I did. You know my record. You know I don't make careless mistakes." But Mr. Grant didn't meet her eyes. "The board wants accountability. Someone has to take the fall." The words sliced through her chest. She felt the weight of years of service, of nights spent awake by patients' bedsides, of sacrifices no one else saw. "So you're telling me," she said slowly, "that after everything I've given, after all the hours, the tears, the lives I've fought to save, I'm disposable?" He cleared his throat. "You're dismissed effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Emma's knees weakened. In one moment, her identity, her career, her stability, all were ripped away. Later that night, Emma sat on the floor of her small apartment, boxes half filled around her. Her 6-year-old son, Liam, curled up beside her, clutching his worn teddy bear. His big brown eyes searched hers. "Mommy, why are you sad?" he asked softly. Emma forced a smile, brushing his blonde hair back from his forehead. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm just thinking." He frowned. "Did they not like you at work?" Her throat tightened. How could she explain injustice to a child who still believed the world was fair? "Sometimes," she said gently, "people don't see the truth right away. Sometimes they choose to believe something that isn't real." She kissed his forehead. "But remember this, Liam, no matter what happens, we keep going. We don't give up." "Like superheroes?" he asked, his eyes brightening. She smiled, her heart aching. "Exactly. Like superheroes." Days blurred into weeks. Without her salary, bills piled up. She sold furniture piece by piece. First the television, then the couch, then the bed frame. She applied to hospitals across the city, but the story of her error had already spread. Doors that once opened easily now slammed shut. One rainy evening, Emma sat at the kitchen table, staring at the last eviction notice. The landlord's words rang harshly in her ears. "You're out by the end of the week. No exceptions." Tears stung her eyes. She whispered to herself, "I gave everything, and now I have nothing." But then she looked at Liam asleep on a blanket on the floor, his chest rising and falling softly. Her grief shifted into resolve. "I may lose everything else, but I won't lose him. I will fight for him." When the eviction came, Emma carried their few belongings in 2 old duffel bags. Rain soaked through her thin coat as she held Liam's hand tightly. The city streets stretched endlessly, indifferent to their suffering. Cars rushed by. People passed without looking. They spent the first night in a shelter. The smell of mildew clung to the walls, and the beds were little more than mats. Liam whispered, "Mommy, I don't like it here." Can we go home? Emma hugged him close, her eyes burning. This is home for now, my love. But one day, we'll have a place that's warm and safe again. I promise. Flashbacks haunted her during those nights. She remembered the elderly patient who once gripped her hand, whispering, "You're an angel in scrubs." She remembered the premature baby she had cared for until the fragile little boy finally breathed on his own. She remembered her colleagues turning to her during chaos, knowing she would steady the storm. How did it all unravel so fast? She wondered. How could truth mean nothing in a world that chooses blame over justice? Still, each morning, she wiped her tears and put on a brave face for Liam. Today, she'd tell him, "We're going to be strong." And each night, when despair threatened to crush her, she whispered words into the darkness. Strength is born in silence. Courage is built in shadows. And dignity survives even when the world strips everything else away. One afternoon, as they sat on a park bench eating the last of a donated sandwich, Liam leaned his head on her shoulder. "Mommy," he asked softly, "are we always going to live outside?" Emma kissed the top of his head, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "No, sweetheart. One day we'll have walls around us again. But remember, walls don't make a home. Love does. And as long as we're together, we have the most important thing." Liam smiled faintly, his small hand clutching hers. For Emma, it was both comfort and agony. She had lost her job, her home, her place in the world. Yet inside, a quiet flame still burned. A mother's love, a nurse's knowledge, a woman's refusal to be broken. Her story was not over. It was only beginning. They can take your title, they can take your walls, they can even take your bed. But they can't take your heart. And as long as your heart still beats, you are not defeated. Emma Wilson whispered those words to herself that night as she held Liam close, the city cold and merciless around them. From nurse to homeless, her fall was brutal, unjust, and heartbreaking. Yet within her despair lay the seed of something greater, resilience. Because sometimes the deepest valleys prepare us for the highest peaks. And Emma's journey was only at its dawn. The morning began like so many others since Emma and Liam had lost their home, cold air biting against their skin, the city alive with the rush of strangers who never stopped to notice them. Emma had grown used to hiding her worry behind a smile for her son. But that day, something was different. She noticed it the moment Liam walked. His small face was pale, his forehead hot to the touch. He coughed, a harsh, rattling sound that made Emma's chest tighten with fear. "Sweetheart, how are you feeling?" she asked, crouching in front of him, brushing damp hair from his face. "My tummy hurts," Liam whispered weakly. "And my chest feels funny." Emma's heart dropped. She pressed her hand against his skin, trained instincts kicking in immediately. His temperature was high. His breathing was shallow and labored. The sound in his lungs, it wasn't right. Her voice was steady, but inside, alarm bells were blaring. "Okay, baby. Don't worry. Mommy's here." Years of nursing experience raced through her mind. Fever, cough, shortness of breath, abdominal pain. This wasn't something that could wait. If untreated, it could spiral into something life-threatening. She tightened her grip on his hand. "We're going to the hospital. Right now." The streets blurred as she half-carried, half-led Liam toward the tall glass building of the city's top-tier hospital. Every step felt endless, her heart pounding with fear. She ignored the curious glances of people as they noticed her tattered coat, the bags under her eyes, the child leaning heavily against her side. When the automatic doors slid open, Emma stepped into the bright, sterile lobby. The smell of antiseptic flooded her senses, familiar yet strangely cruel. She had walked these halls for years as a professional. Today, she entered as a desperate mother. At the reception desk, she rushed forward. "My son, he's very ill," she said urgently. "He has a high fever, shallow breathing, possible pneumonia or sepsis. He needs immediate evaluation. For fluids, labs, oxygen if his saturation drops below 92. The receptionist looked up, startled. Her eyes flicked over Emma's ragged clothes and unkempt hair. Her expression hardened. "Ma'am, you'll need to wait your turn. Please sit down." Emma clenched her fists. "You don't understand. This is critical. I've seen these symptoms before. If you delay..." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Are you a doctor?" Emma's voice was firm. I was a nurse for 15 years. Head nurse of cardiology. I know what I'm talking about. The receptionist sighed, clearly unimpressed. Ma'am, just take a seat. Someone will call you. Emma turned, scanning the crowded waiting area, pulse racing. Liam clung to her arm, his breathing shallow. His small whimper sliced through her like a knife. She knelt down, forcing her voice calm. Stay with me, Liam. Just breathe with me, okay? In and out. He nodded weakly, trying to follow her. But she could see it, the danger building inside his fragile body. Every second matters, she thought. Every single second. Emma stood again, determination blazing through her fear. She stepped closer to the triage nurse. Listen to me, she said sharply. My son needs immediate assessment. His symptoms are consistent with severe respiratory distress. If you don't act, you're risking organ failure. Get him into a room now. Her voice was precise, clinical, undeniable. But the nurse barely glanced at her. A smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. Ma'am, you've been watching too much television. Let the professionals do their job. Emma's face flushed, not with shame, but with fury. She wanted to shout, to shake them awake. Instead, she held Liam tighter. I'm a professional, she whispered to herself, rage mixing with desperation. In that moment, surrounded by the sterile walls of a place that once respected her, Emma felt the crushing weight of invisibility. Her child's life was slipping through her hands, and the very people who should help refused to see past her worn-out clothes and tired eyes. She bent down to Liam again. He was shivering now, his lips tinged slightly blue. Mommy. His voice cracked. Am I gonna be okay? Emma kissed his damp forehead, her tears spilling freely. Yes, baby. You're going to be okay. I won't let anything happen to you. Do you hear me? I won't. Her voice broke, but her spirit didn't. She would fight, scream, do whatever it took. Because a mother's instinct is stronger than pride, stronger than judgment, stronger than the walls built by ignorance. And in that desperate moment, Emma whispered the words she had lived by since losing everything. Fear doesn't stop us, Liam. It fuels us. And I will fight with every breath I have. As she clutched her son, the waiting room buzzing with indifference around them, Emma didn't yet know that someone else was watching. Someone who could see past the worn clothes, the trembling hands, the desperation. But for now, all she knew was the urgency of her child's shallow breaths. Desperate day had begun, and it would change everything. The waiting room was a storm of indifference. Phones buzzed, conversations hummed, and laughter still lingered in the air from the cruel mockery that had stung Emma only minutes before. But she didn't hear it anymore. Her world was narrowed to the fragile boy in her arms. Liam's breathing was shallow, uneven. His small chest rose and fell with effort. His skin was clammy, his forehead burning hot against Emma's cheek. She could almost hear the clock ticking inside her mind, every second a countdown. Please, baby, she whispered, clutching him closer. Hold on for me. Just hold on. Her voice was low, steady, but her heart was crumbling. She wanted to scream, to demand someone listen, but she had already been met with laughter and judgment. She was drowning in humiliation. And yet, she refused to stop fighting. It was then that the sliding doors opened with a soft hiss, and a tall man in a white coat stepped into the room. His presence carried weight, not because of volume, but because of quiet authority. His name tag read Dr. Michael Harper, and every staff member seemed to notice him immediately. He paused just inside the entrance, scanning the room with calm, measured eyes. He had the kind of gaze that lingered long enough to see past surfaces, past appearances. And in seconds, his eyes landed on Emma. He saw a woman in ragged clothes, clutching a child whose body trembled against her chest. He saw the way she rocked him instinctively, whispering instructions, out, slow breaths. He saw the precision in her touch, the certainty in her posture, even though she looked exhausted and broken. And then he noticed the boy. His lips faintly blue, his chest straining for air, his mother's fear so raw it painted every line of her face. Dr. Harper's brow furrowed. Something wasn't right. Emma looked up and found his gaze fixed on her. For a heartbeat, she felt naked under the weight of it, someone finally looking at her, truly looking. She braced herself for another sneer, another dismissal. But instead, his eyes sharpened with recognition. He approached quietly, ignoring the startled glances from staff. He stopped just a few feet away, observing without rushing, his silence heavier than words. The receptionist spoke up quickly, eager to explain. "Doctor, it's nothing serious. Just a woman exaggerating her kid's symptoms." We were about to stop. The single word silenced the room. Dr. Harper's voice wasn't loud, but it carried an authority that demanded respect. He turned back to Emma, his gaze steady. "What's happening with him?" he asked. Emma swallowed hard. For the first time in hours, someone was asking, not mocking. She steadied her voice. "High fever, shallow respirations, abdominal pain. His lung sounds are diminished, likely pneumonia progressing fast. He needs oxygen and 4 fluids immediately. If not, he could decompensate." Her words came out crisp, clinical. Years of experience shaping every syllable. The room held its breath. Dr. Harper studied her face. He saw the clarity in her eyes, the expertise behind her panic. This wasn't a desperate mother grasping at straws. This was a nurse, one who knew exactly what she was talking about. Then he turned sharply to the staff who had mocked her only minutes ago. "She knows what she's doing," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "We need to act immediately." The room went still. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Nurses froze, shame flooding their faces. Even the patients in the waiting room went silent, eyes widening in shock at the sudden shift. Emma blinked, stunned. For the first time since this nightmare began, someone had stood beside her. The triage nurse stammered. "Dr. Harper, we didn't think." "That's the problem," he interrupted firmly. "You didn't think. You judged. And now a child's life is hanging by a thread." His words fell like thunder, exposing the cruelty and bias that had nearly cost Liam his chance. Emma held her son tighter, tears slipping down her cheeks, not for humiliation this time, but from the sudden, overwhelming relief of being heard. She whispered against Liam's hair. "Did you hear that, sweetheart? Someone's listening now." Dr. Harper turned back to her, his voice softer now. "We'll take care of him. But I want you to stay close. You clearly understand his condition better than anyone here right now." Emma nodded, too overcome to speak. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel discarded. She felt seen. And as orderlies rushed forward with a gurney, following Dr. Harper's orders without hesitation, Emma knew this moment was more than just an intervention for Liam. It was a turning point for her, too. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice, calm, certain, and true, to cut through the noise of judgment. And in that waiting room, Dr. Michael Harper had been that voice. The emergency room moved like a well-oiled machine, yet slower than Emma's racing heartbeat. Gurneys rolled past, monitors beeped, and the antiseptic air bit at her lungs. She followed closely behind Dr. Harper, her son lying pale and shivering on the stretcher. "Room 6, Dr. Harper ordered. Prepare for 4 fluids, oxygen, and full vitals. Labs now." Emma stayed by Liam's side, her hands steady even as her heart threatened to tear itself apart. She whispered to him, "I'm here, baby. Just hold on. Mommy's right here." The staff who had mocked her only minutes before now moved with awkward hesitation. Eyes flicked toward her, unsure how to reconcile the confident authority Dr. Harper had recognized with the tattered, exhausted woman in front of them. Dr. Harper glanced at Emma, a subtle nod acknowledging her expertise. "I want you assisting with the 4. His veins are small. We need steady hands." Emma bent over Liam, her hands practiced and precise. She selected the catheter, wiped the site with antiseptic, and gently inserted the needle. Liam winced but didn't cry, trusting her calm voice. "You're doing great, sweetheart. Almost done. That's it. All done." "Impressive," Dr. Harper murmured quietly to a nearby nurse, who was visibly embarrassed. "She's methodical, precise, and calm under pressure." I don't know why anyone doubted her. Emma worked alongside him seamlessly. She monitored Liam's oxygen saturation, noted subtle changes in his breathing pattern, and suggested adjusting the fluid rate based on his vitals. Every word, every movement demonstrated a mastery that years of experience had honed. The nurses who had whispered and laughed now watched in awe. Some bit their lips, others shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet her gaze. One young nurse whispered to her colleague, She's really a nurse. Not just any nurse, she's amazing." Emma's hands didn't falter. She was too focused on her son. Liam, you're doing so well. Mommy's right here. You're so strong. His small fingers twitched in her grasp, and a faint color returned to his cheeks. Dr. Harper worked quickly, relying on Emma's observations. His lung sounds are improving, he said, scanning the monitor. Administer the nebulizer now. Watch for wheezing. Emma adjusted the settings, her voice calm and professional. He's responding. Breathing slightly easier. Continue oxygen at 2 liters. Monitor saturation closely. The staff watched silently as Liam's condition slowly stabilized under Emma's care. The tension in the room began to lift, replaced by a sense of awe. This was no ordinary mother. This was a professional operating with precision under pressure, a woman whose knowledge and skill saved lives. Even the once smirking receptionist peeked from behind her desk, her expression a mixture of shame and wonder. Minutes stretched into an eternity, yet finally, Liam's breathing evened, his fever began to drop, and his small hand relaxed in Emma's grip. She exhaled, a soft, relieved sound. He's going to be okay, she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. You hear that, baby? Mommy promised. Dr. Harper watched quietly, impressed by her composure. You handled that remarkably well. I don't see how anyone could have dismissed your knowledge. You kept calm under intense pressure, exactly what we need in a critical situation. Emma's voice trembled slightly. I just did what had to be done. He's my son, and I know what I know because I've dedicated my life to helping people. He nodded, understanding more than words could express. And now everyone here sees it too. You've earned their respect. The staff who had mocked her earlier now approached with hesitant nods, murmuring apologies. One young nurse whispered, I'm sorry. You saved him. I should have listened. Emma smiled softly, brushing a damp strand of hair from Liam's face. It's okay. Just learn from it. Never underestimate someone based on appearances. Knowledge and heart are not measured by clothes. Dr. Harper placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I hope you know this. Today, you didn't just save your son. You reminded all of us why respect and humility matter in medicine. Emma looked down at Liam, who now rested quietly, eyes slowly closing in relief. Her heart swelled with a mixture of exhaustion, gratitude, and quiet triumph. In that moment, she realized skill, courage, and love could shine brighter than any prejudice, louder than any mockery. And even in the darkest of circumstances, they could turn despair into hope. Because Emma Wilson had done what she had always done, stood strong, saved a life, and proven that dignity and knowledge are never truly invisible. Appearances deceive, judgment falters, but the heart and skill reveal the truth. Courage is quiet, and it always speaks louder than words. Emma whispered this to herself as she held Liam close, finally allowing herself a small, exhausted smile. The battle wasn't over. But for the first time, she felt the tide shifting in her favor. The hushed quiet of the private office felt surreal to Emma. She sat across from Dr. Michael Harper, still holding Liam gently on her lap. Her son's small body had finally relaxed, his fever subsiding under the care she had orchestrated with precise knowledge and instinct. Yet Emma's mind was a whirlwind of lingering shame, relief, and exhaustion. Dr. Harper leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady, thoughtful. He had watched her in action, seen her calm under pressure, and recognized the depth of her expertise. But now, beyond the medical precision, he needed to understand the story behind the woman who had been dismissed, humiliated, and forced into the streets, all while carrying the weight of saving her child. Emma, he began, his voice gentle yet firm. Tell me what happened. Why weren't you at work? Why were you out there, like that? Emma swallowed, her throat tight with emotion. She took a deep breath and began, her voice soft but unwavering. I was the head nurse at St. Mary's. I've worked there for 15 years. I love my job. I still do. But a minor error occurred, one that I didn't commit, and the administration blamed me. Just like that, my career was taken from me. No warnings, no investigation. They dismissed me. Her hands clenched in her lap. I had no savings, no safety net. And with my son, Liam, we ended up on the streets. Her voice cracked, but she continued, forced by the need to be heard. I did everything I could for him, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I know my work. I know how to care for patients. And today, my knowledge saved my son's life. Dr. Harper remained silent, listening intently, letting each word sink in. The room seemed to shrink, the weight of her truth pressing down on him. He saw the lines of struggle on her face, the fire in her eyes, the unwavering love for her child. After a pause, he spoke, his tone deliberate. "Emma, what they did to you was not just unfair. It was disgraceful. You showed courage, competence, and dedication today under circumstances most of us can't even imagine. And you did it while caring for your son. That's extraordinary." Emma blinked, unsure if she should hope or prepare for disappointment. "I want to offer you something," Dr. Harper continued. "I want you back in the hospital. I want you to be head nurse again. You will have the authority, the respect, and the recognition you deserve. Not because I say so, but because you've proven it. Time and again, and today, in the most undeniable way." Emma felt tears sting her eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know what to say. After everything, after the humiliation, the streets. "You don't have to say anything," Dr. Harper interrupted softly. "Actions speak louder than words. You've acted with integrity, skill, and courage. And now it's time the hospital recognizes that." A faint smile broke across Emma's face. For the first time in weeks, hope felt real, tangible. She could feel the weight of despair lift slightly. "And Liam?" she asked, her voice trembling. I just want him to feel safe again." Dr. Harper nodded. "He's safe. And you're safe too. You'll rebuild your life here, Emma. Step by step." The office seemed to glow with a quiet sense of justice. For years, Emma had been invisible to those who judged her by appearances. Now she was seen for exactly who she was, a skilled professional, a loving mother, and a woman whose perseverance refused to be broken. Emma exhaled slowly, feeling a warmth that had eluded her for so long. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." Dr. Harper gave a small, respectful nod. "You earned it. You always did." As Emma left the office with Liam nestled in her arms, the weight of the past weeks began to dissolve. The streets, the mockery, the endless nights of fear, all of it had tested her. But today, she had been recognized. Today, her dignity was restored. In her heart, she knew this was not just a personal victory. It was a reminder that integrity, skill, and love can withstand injustice. That courage does not go unnoticed forever. And for the first time since losing everything, Emma allowed herself to imagine a future filled not with fear, but with respect, empowerment, and hope. Because sometimes, it takes the world watching a child's life hang in the balance for truth to finally be seen. And in that truth, Emma found her strength. Justice may be delayed, and recognition may be withheld, but courage and competence will always find their moment to shine. She whispered this to Liam as they walked down the hospital corridor, a mother and son stepping into a future brighter than the darkest days they had endured. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of St. Mary's Hospital, casting a warm glow across the polished floors. For Emma Wilson, it was more than just another day at work. It was the beginning of a new chapter. She walked with purpose, her head held high, Liam safely at her side for a short visit before school, the first step in reclaiming not just her career, but her life. The staff paused as she passed, whispers trailing in her wake. Some were still awkward from the memory of their prior ridicule. Others watched with quiet admiration. Emma met their gazes evenly, her expression calm, composed, yet unyielding. Her first official act as head nurse was more than administrative. It was a statement. "Gather everyone in the main conference room," she instructed firmly. "We're starting a new initiative today. Empathy, patient care, and professional respect are mandatory for all staff." Heads turned, some skeptical, others curious. Dr. Harper, standing at the back, offered a nod of encouragement. "This is not about punishment," Emma continued. "It's about creating a culture where every patient, every colleague, and every professional is treated with dignity. Mistakes happen, yes, but mockery and judgment have no place here. We will do better. We must do better." A silence hung in the air. Slowly, the murmurs of agreement grew louder. The staff could feel the authority in her words, not just from her title, but from the experience, courage, and wisdom she carried. Over the following weeks, Emma worked tirelessly. She mentored younger nurses, guiding them with patience and precision. She reviewed protocols, emphasizing empathy alongside efficiency. Staff who had once whispered and laughed now sought her advice, realizing that the woman they had underestimated was their most valuable resource. One young nurse approached her hesitantly. "Emma, I just want to say I'm sorry for doubting you. I see now your knowledge, your calm under pressure. It's incredible. And you've taught me more than anyone else here." Emma smiled, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn, we grow, and we treat others with respect. That's how we become better nurses and better people." Even doctors who had been skeptical began consulting her, appreciating her insight, her clinical intuition, and her unwavering commitment. Liam occasionally visited during brief breaks, peeking into the nurse's station with curiosity. He marveled at the respect his mother now commanded. "Mommy," he said one day, tugging at her sleeve, "everyone listens to you. You're like a superhero." Emma chuckled softly, lifting him into her arms. "I'm just doing what's right, baby. That's the real superpower." But the transformation went beyond personal recognition. Emma instituted regular training sessions for staff, focusing on empathy, patient communication, and ethical responsibility. Role-playing exercises, discussions on bias, and reflections on past mistakes became part of the hospital culture. At first, some resisted. "Why do we need this?" a veteran nurse grumbled. But after attending sessions led by Emma, even the skeptics began to see the difference. Patients were treated with renewed care, staff began collaborating rather than judging, and the hospital became a place where competence and compassion were valued equally. Emma's presence was a quiet force of change. She did not shout or demand respect. She earned it, every day, through integrity, expertise, and unwavering commitment. Dr. Harper watched from his office, a rare smile on his face. "She's changing the culture faster than I imagined," he murmured to himself. "She's not just restoring respect, she's building something greater." In her office, surrounded by charts, schedules, and mentoring notes, Emma paused for a moment. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. The weight of the past weeks, the fear, the humiliation, the nights spent on streets with Liam, felt distant now, replaced with purpose, strength, and hope. She looked out the window at the bustling hospital below. This was her world again, not just a workplace, but a place where she could teach, heal, and inspire. And now she had the authority to ensure that no other staff member would face what she had endured unjustly. Her phone buzzed softly. Liam's school had sent a picture. He was smiling brightly, painting with friends, completely safe and happy. She smiled, her heart swelling. This was the triumph she had been fighting for, not just her own, but for every patient and colleague who would feel the ripple of her courage and leadership. Respect is earned through action, not appearances. True leadership inspires change, lifts others, and leaves a legacy far greater than any title. Emma whispered this to herself as she straightened her shoulders and prepared for another day, knowing that she had transformed not only her own life but the very culture of the hospital she loved. She had turned despair into empowerment, ridicule into respect, and adversity into opportunity. And from this moment forward, nothing could take that away. The sun was low in the sky, painting the hospital walls with a golden glow. Emma Wilson walked through the corridors, her steps steady, her head held high. The scent of antiseptic was familiar now, no longer oppressive, but a reminder of the place where she had endured, fought, and ultimately triumphed. Liam ran ahead, laughing as he chased the small ball a nurse had tossed him in the pediatric wing. His cheeks were rosy, his eyes bright. For the first time in weeks, he moved freely, unafraid, fully alive. Emma paused for a moment at the doorway, watching him, her heart swelling with quiet joy. "Mommy," Liam called, running back to her. "Look, I painted a rainbow." Emma knelt down, embracing him. "It's beautiful, baby. Just like you." Her gaze wandered through the bustling hospital. Nurses moved with confidence, doctors consulted each other respectfully, patients smiled as they received care with dignity. The change was subtle but undeniable. The culture she had helped rebuild had taken root. She thought of the days on the streets, the humiliation in the waiting room, the fear of losing her son. Every moment of despair had been a test of her perseverance, integrity, and love. And now that journey had culminated in this recognition, respect, and transformation. Dr. Harper passed by and nodded toward her. "You've done more than save a life today," he said quietly. "You've changed an entire hospital." Emma smiled, feeling the weight of his words. "We all can," she said. "Sometimes it just takes one person refusing to give up." She held Liam's hand and began walking toward the hospital's main entrance. The city outside seemed brighter, alive with possibilities. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure and hope wash over her. "Mommy," Liam asked softly, "are we really okay now?" Emma knelt, looking into his eyes. "Yes, baby. We're stronger than ever. And no matter what, we'll face life together." A nurse passing by smiled at them. "Welcome back, Emma. You're an inspiration." Emma's lips curved into a genuine smile. Inspiration, triumph, perseverance. Words she had longed to feel in her life, and now they surrounded her. As they stepped out into the sunlight, Emma felt a quiet sense of catharsis. The journey from despair to strength, from invisibility to recognition, had not been easy, but every struggle had forged a resilience that could never be taken away. And as she held Liam close, watching him skip ahead, she whispered to herself, "Courage, love, and integrity will always find their way, even in the darkest moments." She turned to the camera of life itself, metaphorically speaking, and spoke, her voice full of warmth and invitation. If Emma's story inspired you, remember, strength can rise from the hardest trials. Love and courage are more powerful than judgment and injustice. Follow this channel to discover more stories of hope, resilience, and transformation. Every life has the power to change the world, just like Emma's. The mother and son walked forward, stepping confidently into a future where respect, compassion, and hope guided every step. The hospital had changed. Emma had changed. And most importantly, Liam knew that no matter what, love and courage would always prevail.